So it really comes from taking behavioral intent data and a huge amount of noise and creating an actionable signal from that noise. While this can take many forms, we believe that the best signal of this is taking real-world search behavior and real-world website visitation data and determining whether or not an ad drove additional behavioral intent. And from that, you have the best predictor of will this drive end sales, will this drive increases in market share, and it's the closest thing you can get to real time for most TV brands and a lot of TV publishers to understanding what was the direct outcome driven as a result of a TV ad driven. And if you look at what a lot of the social platforms and walled gardens do in terms of turning their deterministic data to a deterministic purchase, to a deterministic outcome, I think the same thing needs to come to television for it to truly scale and for it to be a healthy, long-term, and sustainable marketplace.
Charlie, speaking of scale, for SMB-focused brands, correct me if I'm wrong, precision tends to matter more than scale alone. So with that in mind, terms like precision at scale is a self-evident term, but it's also kind of vague. So what does precision at scale actually look like in CTV today, particularly within the SMB context?
Yeah, I think it comes to a breadth of data and a depth of data. So if you're a small brand, be it a local restaurant, a local car dealer, whatever it may be, there needs to be the ability to understand the effectiveness of your ads, and you need to be able to do it in a very dispersed environment where you're running search ads, you're running social ads, you're running CTV ads. So precision at scale really comes back to across all of these environments. Obviously we focus on CTV in particular, but across all of these environments, am I reaching the right audience and am I driving the right outcome? So we think it really comes back to, can I understand how well my ads did against my competitors? Can I understand how well linear ad did against a CTV ad, did against social video, whatever it may be? So precision at scale comes from taking a huge breadth and depth of data across multiple environments, but particularly CTV and linear TV, and then tying that to an actionable outcome that you can feel confident when you have a limited budget or a big budget that you're reaching the right audience and achieving the right result from your advertising.
I'd like to stay with the idea of exploring outcomes for a moment, Charlie. What metrics are most convincing when CMOs ask, did CTV actually drive results? How strong an answer can you give on that?
Yeah, we obviously focus on engagement as the highest predictive signal of an ad driving a result. And all of our data is predictive of an outcome, but it's really, did this data or did this advertisement drive sales at the end of the day? For some people, that sale can be close to immediate. For others, it's building brand awareness to drive sales years or quarters in the future. So in terms of what CMOs want with results, at the end of the day, it's sales. But from advertisement, we think it's all what was the engagement driven from that ad, and what does that impact look like on future sales, whether you're a pharmaceutical marketer, an auto marketer, or anyone in between. We think that's essential. To be able to say that this ad drove engagement, and I know that by driving engagement over my competitive set, in the end I'm going to be driving market share shifts and more sales of my product.
Charlie, interoperability is a constant challenge, a perennial problem in a lot of these, particularly when it comes to measurement. So want to know, assessing DSPs, data partners, and measurement platforms, how well are those areas really working together, or are they still too separate and fragmented?
I think there's a long way to go for all that. I think there's a lot of companies out there that are building comprehensive product suites. I think if you look at our integration with the trade desk, there really needs to be more of that a brand can activate through a demand-side platform and then utilize that demand-side platform for measurement. We think that there also needs to be a lot of connection to audience data. If you look at our partnership with Nielsen, for instance, that really is about how do you match an audience with an outcome, Nielsen being a premier company in audience and ours being a premier company in outcomes. So I think there's very much a long way to go for CTV. Obviously, I think measurement challenges has been a huge issue, but I think every day, every year, there's really more steps towards interoperability and being able to offer a scaled, defensible solution to understand what was the audience measured, what was the outcome measured, be that a engagement rate from EDO, a first-party audience from a partner, or a panel, for instance, from a company like Nielsen or others. So I think we're getting there. I think it's a work in progress, but I think, especially at this show, there's been a lot of good meetings and we've made a lot of good steps forward for active partnerships and future partnerships.
Taking a look at those steps forward that you made, earlier you made a lot of great points about the uses of deterministic data. So with that, what's next? What's the next unlock for deterministic data that could make CTV a game changer, particularly for performance-driven marketers?
So for deterministic data, I think it needs to tie to an actual live campaign and have that data be fed in to improve algorithmic optimization. So for example, how do you improve a campaign that's in flight? By using your own results to bid on or correctly place the next ad in the future. I think that's really a great unlock for deterministic data. I think the more and more you have a high fidelity or a first-party logged-in environment and are using that, I think that's also obviously a clear unlock for the use of deterministic data, as well as how do you tie that to deterministic outcomes at scale, which is something that EDO can do at the impression level. So I think right now the entire world is moving towards that, and I think that's only going to continue in the future. If you look at the rise of what were social or e-commerce platforms and how well they're doing in the TV space, I think that's evident as well. So I think it's using your own first-party data to improve your media buying, activation, and measurement. And I think it's really getting as close to a logged-in user or deterministic identifier as possible before an ad even runs. That's going to get you to that place where deterministic data is a lot more relevant and essential for the TV and connected TV ad ecosystem.